One of the saddest things that I have come across in the work that I do is the fact that food addiction and addiction to sugar is rampant in this country, but it is so widely overlooked by people in the weight loss industry. You know, I mean, 70%, if not more, of the American adult population is food addicted. They are suffering from an addiction, like a legitimate addiction to uh, sugars. Just as an alcoholic is addicted to alcohol or a heroin addict is addicted to heroin. I mean, we have people who are legitimately addicted to sugar. Like, they feel anxious if they don't have it. And, they suffer from these really intense food cravings and they feel like they're going to crawl out of their skin if they don't get their, sugar fix. A real legitimate addiction, and people suffering from it every single day, and nobody is really offering help because it is still not mainstream. And it's almost like people don't even want to face it. Food addiction, admittedly, is a tricky phenomenon because unlike alcohol, you can't just quit eating food. So people don't want to face the fact that they are suffering from an addiction to food. But the truth of the matter is, if you are, you're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to face the music, because if you ever want to get better, if you ever want to experience the kind of life that comes with not always having to worry about your weight or living by the number that's on that scale, not always having food on your mind 24/7. If you ever want to live a life where you are free from food and you are able to, concentrate and put all your energy into an area of your life that really deserves it, you're going to have to face some facts. And, I understand exactly what that feels like, because for the longest time I avoided it too. I did not want to admit that I was addicted to food. There's so many taboos that come with that label of addiction. But let me first just tell you, even if you identify yourself today as a food addict, do not take on that label. Don't take it on. Don't make that part of your identity. I am not Michelle Estrada, former fast food addict. That's not who I am. I just realized I had an issue. I faced it. I accepted it, which made it easier for me to move forward with getting rid of that issue. And so before we move on in this boot camp, let's go ahead and, I'm going to help you identify if you yourself also have a legitimate addiction to sugar, or food in general. Okay? So go ahead and get out a piece of paper, get your pen, and you don't have to write these down unless you want to, but just maybe put a tally mark for each one that sounds like it resonates with you or that you answer yes to. Okay? All right, so the first question, and we're starting the food addiction diagnostic test. Have you ever wanted to stop eating and found that you just couldn't? Yes or no? Do you think about food or your weight constantly? Do you find yourself attempting one diet or food plan after another with no lasting success? Do you binge and then get rid of the binge through vomiting, extreme exercise, laxatives, or other forms of purging? Do you eat differently in private than you do in front of other people? Has a doctor or a family member ever approached you with concern about your eating habits or weight? Do you eat large quantities of food at one time, which is known as a binge? Is your weight problem due to your nibbling all day long? Do you eat to escape from your feelings? Do you eat when you're not hungry? Have you ever discarded food only to retrieve it and eat it later? Do you ever eat in secret? Do you fast or severely restrict your food intake? Are you, either you have what you want or you don't eat anything at all? Are you waiting for your life to begin when the weight is gone? Are you putting off vacations and family get-togethers and things of that nature um, in preparation for you to quote unquote lose the weight? Do you feel hopeless about your relationship, your connection, or your draw to food? Okay, so you don't really need to count them out, because if you have answered yes to 3 or more of those questions, you have an addiction to sugar or food. And, just kind of take a deep breath, accept it, cry, let it out if you have to. The good news is that there is freedom. There is such a thing as freedom from food addiction, and it's much simpler to break it than what you might think. I just want you to know that there is help for you. And this boot camp, I'm going to teach you how you can systematically break that food addiction in 14 days or less. And we're talking about the physical addiction to that food. There is an emotional component to that also, but first we break the physical addiction, and then we start to break the emotional addiction part of it. All right? Okay, moving on.